At 19 years old, Norman served his country in the Vietnam War. His love of God and strong patriotism helped him push through the fear of the unknown and respond to a role in the armed services. After being in country for only a month, his platoon came upon a village where known combatants were storing weapons. As they approached, a young girl with fear in her eyes came running out of a hut straight towards him. Without thinking, he opened fire on her and other women and children in the village. After the smoke settled and he began to process what he'd done, a deep remorse fell over him, until at the age of 65, having carried the shame and guilt with him, and yet having a successful career and a family, he wrote a final note to his loved ones and took his own life. Emotional and spiritual damage of participating in, witnessing, or being victimized by actions that violate our moral values is devastating. Regardless of our faith, background, or cultural upbringing, we all have moral and ethical standards that, if disrupted, can create moral injury within us. In my role as director of ministry in a faith-based organization serving broken individuals and families, I've witnessed shame, guilt, and unforgiveness that drives them into deep depression and addiction. Over the past year, I've strived to become a community thought leader in understanding moral injuries and its effects, which has driven me to connect with national and local authors and educators on the topic. My hope today is to influence your thoughts by proving that understanding the impact of moral injury on ourselves and in our communities provides a thoughtful approach to ministry and creates a graceful avenue for outreach into the mental health community, reducing stigma and self-harm. First, let's understand what moral injury is. The human soul defies definition, really, yet it is fueled by our resilience and a deep desire within us to move forward with hope. Damage to the soul now has a definition of moral injury. Moral injury occurs as our moral core is violated. We can lose our moral identity, resulting in overwhelming feelings of grief, shame, and much more. Harry Quiet, in his 2018 essay titled The Sense of Place, says that the term moral injury applies to many individuals who have endured suffering to the point that their spirit is simply broken. So why does moral injury need to be understood? Moral injury can lead to depression, isolation, and suicidal ideation. According to leading researchers at the Syracuse University working on the Moral Injury Project, moral injury can take the life of those suffering from it, both metaphorically and literally. Moral injury debilitates people, preventing them from living full, healthy lives. The effects of moral injury aren't contained within an individual. Family members are directly impacted through a myriad of mental health and financial issues, as well as community from there. According to Dr. Rita Brock, a leading researcher, author of Soul Repair, a woman who I've met and had the chance to hear on many occasions, she said that those suffering with moral injury may self-medicate their inner pain with alcohol or drugs. They can become alienated from societal norms and lash out in anger at the slightest provocation. So, let's look at how we can make a difference moving forward. Healing from moral injury begins with acknowledgement, community engagement, and something we call spiritual resilience training. Since we know that moral injury leads to denial and isolation, methods for involving family and trusted community members must be employed. Dr. Rita Brock and many of her associates are developing a model called spiritual resilience training. It looks like this. I know this is maybe tough to understand the whole piece of, but according to her comments in a 2018 published document, recovery model is inclusive of rituals, arts, spiritual practices, service to the community, writing, telling stories, and social support for recovery. So as we wrap up, I want to remind us all again that understanding the impact of moral injury on ourselves and in our communities provides a thoughtful approach to ministry and creates a graceful avenue for outreach into the mental health community, reducing stigma and self-harm. Through education with ourselves and community, we can understand just how harmful moral injury is, not to just ourselves. It affects our entire community and weakens the human soul, robbing from God's desire to share grace in abundance for all humanity. We have an opportunity to help through spiritual resilience training and support. I'd like to advise everyone here to take the opportunity to learn more about moral injury, to think about how even yourself or people in your close group, maybe family or friends, have been affected by moral injury. Take this definition with you and use it to see if this comes up and somehow connects with your own soul and spirit. So we think about Norman, the veteran who took his own life after a long battle with moral injury. I want to leave us with the powerful quote from an unknown Vietnam soldier reflecting on the torment of moral injury. He said this: "There's more suicide than combat death. And if you can't feel this pain, maybe you're already dead."